I never thought I'd feel this hollow looking at my phone, staring at the same text over and over, knowing it didn't tell the whole story. Her name was Lauren, and we had been together for 3 years. The kind of relationship people envied without understanding how fragile the foundation really was. When she said she was going on a girls' trip, I didn't think twice. I trusted her. I pictured her laughing with old friends, sipping wine on a beach, sending me pictures of sunsets and cocktails. The image was so perfect that it almost hurt. But the seed of unease had been planted long before, creeping in silently during nights when she came home late with excuses that never sat right with me. Something about her tone, a strange inflection I didn't notice at first, made me pause. I remembered how she had gotten defensive when I asked simple questions about work, about people she hung out with, about little things that now seemed like red flags in hindsight. And yet, I had ignored them, telling myself I was being paranoid. But this trip felt different, like a puzzle piece that didn't fit the picture I thought I knew. 2 days into her girls' getaway, I woke up to a faint buzz on my phone. It was an unfamiliar number. My heart sank when I realized it wasn't a stranger, it was him. Mark, Lauren's ex. The one she'd told me she'd cut off years ago. He sent a single image. Nothing explicit, nothing obscene, but the context made my stomach drop. Lauren's hotel room keycard sat on a table next to a suitcase that wasn't hers. A photo of two drinks on a balcony with a note that made it sound casual, like they were just hanging out. But the laughter in her eyes, the curve of her smile in the dim light, made it painfully clear it wasn't just friends. I tried to rationalize it, to tell myself maybe they were meeting for closure, maybe it was innocent. But something deep inside me knew the truth. My phone kept buzzing for hours, messages from Mark teasing, hinting, never outright saying what was happening but giving enough to make my mind race. I felt betrayed in a way that burned through every rational thought. I sat there scrolling through our old messages, our photos, trying to find signs I had missed, trying to convince myself I wasn't imagining things. Every memory suddenly felt tainted. The way she laughed at a joke that only he would understand. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear while texting late at night. The subtle excitement in her voice whenever she mentioned meeting up with friends. It all became pieces of a picture I wished I hadn't completed. My friends told me to call her, to confront her, but I hesitated. Part of me wanted the truth. Part of me dreaded it. That night I barely slept, replaying every moment, every word, wondering how long this had been going on. I felt both rage and grief, a mix of emotions that made my chest tight. By morning, I realized I couldn't sit idle. I had to know, had to see it for myself. I booked a last-minute flight to the city she had said she was visiting, telling myself I would confront her, maybe beg for honesty, maybe just watch from afar. Every step toward the airport felt surreal, like walking through a dream that could turn into a nightmare at any second. When I landed, I felt the tension in my chest like a physical weight. I rented a car, driving through streets I barely recognized, following the breadcrumbs of a trip she had painted as innocent. And then I saw it, the small boutique hotel she had mentioned, but instead of a group of laughing girls, there was one familiar figure leaning casually against the balcony railing, Mark, and next to him, Lauren, laughing in a way I had only ever heard from me. I parked, heart hammering, unsure if I should walk in, and sure if witnessing the scene would be worse than not knowing. And in that moment, time seemed to slow. I felt like I was standing outside my own life, watching it unravel. Every thought raced, every plan I had made to approach her dissolved into a fog of betrayal and confusion. I realized that this was more than just a girl's trip. It was a collision of past and present, of lies and secrets, of a truth that I wasn't sure I was ready to face. I had to decide whether to confront them, to demand answers, or to walk away and let the truth fester somewhere in the shadows. But the knowledge that I had stumbled upon this scene first left me powerless. My phone vibrated again, a new message from Mark. It was short, simple, "Wish you were here." My stomach turned. And I knew that what I thought was a temporary separation between us had dissolved into something I didn't yet fully understand. Every step I had taken to trust, to love, to believe in us had been a lie, or at least a carefully curated illusion. And as I sat in the car, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white, I realized that whatever happened next would change everything. The rest of the trip, the rest of our lives, hung in a delicate balance, and the choices I made now could either destroy what was left or force a confrontation that neither of us would ever forget. But before I could make a move, a new twist revealed itself. Another message, this time with the video. And what I saw made my mind spin, made every scenario I had imagined pale in comparison. Lauren, Mark, and someone else. Someone I didn't expect. Someone who shouldn't have been there at all. And just like that, the story I thought I knew had grown more complex, more dangerous, and infinitely more painful. I had no idea what I was walking into, no idea if I would leave it unbroken or utterly shattered. And yet, the pull to know, the need to uncover the truth, was stronger than anything else. Every beat of my heart screamed at me to act, to see it through. And I knew that whatever happened next would mark the end of one chapter and the terrifying beginning of another. I watched the video over and over, unable to look away, unable to convince myself that what I was seeing wasn't real. Lauren and Mark were in the hotel suite, laughing, leaning close to each other. And then there was another figure, Jenna. My stomach dropped when I recognized her. Jenna, one of Lauren's closest friends, the friend she had insisted was part of this girl's trip, the friend I had met once and thought was harmless. But in the video, she wasn't just a friend. She was sitting on the couch, her arm draped casually over Mark's shoulder, laughing at something only the two of them found funny. It was a scene of betrayal layered on betrayal, a web I hadn't even imagined existed. My mind raced, piecing together conversations, noticing little things I had brushed off. Lauren mentioning Jenna coming along last minute, the way she had avoided saying how many people were in the group, the vague excuses when I asked for details. Everything clicked, and the sense of being blindsided hit me harder than I could have expected. I drove around the block, gripping the steering wheel, trying to think rationally. I considered calling her, confronting her through text, sending the evidence back to her, but my pride, my need to see it firsthand, overpowered all other instincts. I parked down the street, watching from a distance, trying to blend in, trying to pretend I was just another passerby. And then I saw something that made my blood run cold. Lauren and Mark left the hotel together, laughing, holding hands subtly, while Jenna followed behind carrying a bag of something I couldn't make out. They got into Mark's car, and it wasn't just a casual drive, they were heading somewhere, and the way they looked at each other was too intimate, too knowing. I debated following them, but feared that if they saw me, the situation would escalate beyond anything I could control. Instead, I decided to keep track from a distance, to see where this trip was really leading. They drove through streets I didn't know, into a quieter, more secluded part of the city, eventually stopping at a small, nondescript cabin tucked into the woods. The place looked private, isolated, perfect for whatever secret meeting they were having. My heart raced, my mind spinning with possibilities. What were they planning? How long had this been going on? And why bring Jenna into it? I parked in the shadows, every instinct screaming at me that this could spiral out of control if I wasn't careful. I watched them enter the cabin, watched them disappear inside, and felt a mix of rage, hurt, and confusion. My phone buzzed again, another message from Mark. This one was different. Instead of teasing or hinting, it was a taunt, a single line. You really don't know everything, do you? My chest tightened. I realized at that moment that the truth was far more complicated, far more sinister than I had imagined. Mark and Lauren weren't just reconnecting, they were orchestrating something, and Jenna was part of it. But why? For what reason? I couldn't stop thinking about the patterns, the small details I had ignored, the fleeting moments of distance between us that suddenly made perfect sense. I decided to wait, to see what would unfold inside the cabin. Hours passed, night fell, and I remained hidden, my nerves frying with every passing minute. Then I saw them leave, carrying suitcases, their movements hurried, almost conspiratorial. They didn't notice me, and I followed cautiously, keeping a safe distance. They drove to a remote lake, a place I had never been, the kind of location that seemed out of a thriller movie, too quiet, too perfect for secrets. As they stepped out, I noticed something chilling. There were people waiting, others, friends, strangers. I couldn't tell. All I knew was that whatever this getaway had been sold as had transformed into something entirely different, something I wasn't prepared for. And then, the final twist of the night, the sound of Lauren's laughter echoed in the still night air. And she said something I couldn't hear clearly, but Mark nodded, and Jenna smiled in a way that made my stomach turn. This wasn't just a casual reunion with an ex. This was a carefully plotted escape, a getaway designed to hide a secret I had no context for. My mind spiraled, trying to imagine scenarios. Were they planning to leave town together? Was this about money, revenge, a past that I hadn't known about? The possibilities were endless and terrifying. I felt my phone buzz again, and this time it was an anonymous text. Stop looking, or you'll regret it. My hands shook. Someone else knew I was there. The shadows around me seemed to grow darker, the night colder, and I realized that the truth I was chasing wasn't just about betrayal, it was about danger. I could feel it in my bones. But I couldn't turn back, not now. Not after seeing Lauren, the woman I had loved, laughing with someone else in a way I couldn't forget, in a way that shattered everything I thought I knew. I stayed until they left the lake, taking mental notes, piecing together movements, expressions, inflections, everything that would help me understand. But every answer seemed to raise new questions. And as I drove back to my hotel that night, I realized I wasn't just chasing the truth, I was chasing a version of Lauren I no longer recognized. A woman who had secrets far darker than a simple reunion, and a story that was just beginning to unfold in ways I had never imagined. I couldn't sleep that night. The images and videos were playing endlessly in my mind. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Lauren, Mark, and Jenna at that secluded lake, their laughter echoing in the darkness, their movements so coordinated it felt like a scene from a movie I wasn't meant to be in. I kept thinking about that anonymous text, the warning that I would regret looking any further. But curiosity, anger, and heartbreak pushed me forward. The next morning, I decided I needed more evidence, a way to understand what was really going on. I rented a small drone to scout the area around the lake, hoping to see who else was involved and maybe catch some clue about their intentions. As I piloted it over the forest and the cabins, I realized the extent of what they had orchestrated. There were multiple cars hidden along the tree line, supplies stacked as if they were preparing for a long stay, and a fire pit in the center with freshly chopped wood. This wasn't a casual trip. This was a hideaway designed for secrecy, isolation, and possibly something far worse. My stomach churned as I zoomed in and caught movement inside one of the cabins. Lauren was there, pacing, her expression serious, different from the carefree woman I had known. Mark was sitting at a table, going over papers, maps, and what looked like a ledger of some kind. Jenna was helping, but the way she leaned in, whispering, almost conspiratorial, made it clear she wasn't just an innocent friend. I felt sick, realizing that this was bigger than a love affair. Whatever they were planning involved careful preparation, timing, and secrecy, and somehow I had stumbled into the middle of it. I didn't know if confronting them now would be dangerous, but I couldn't just leave. I had to know the truth. I started piecing together what little I could see, trying to follow patterns in their movements, their interactions. The more I observed, the more I noticed subtle cues, Lauren glancing at a notebook, Mark checking a camera feed, Jenna moving supplies from one place to another. It felt like watching a well-rehearsed operation, not a casual reunion or a fling. I wanted to turn around, to forget I had ever seen them, but something deep inside told me that leaving would mean letting them win, letting the deception continue. As night fell again, I decided to take a bolder step. I parked my car farther away and approached the edge of the lake on foot, keeping to the shadows, listening. The air was thick with tension, the kind that makes your skin crawl, and every step I took made my heart pound harder. I could see flickering candlelight through the trees, shadows moving in ways that suggested conversation and planning. I crouched behind a cluster of bushes, trying to make sense of the fragmented glimpses I could catch. Then, a sound, a whisper of urgency, a sharp intake of breath made me freeze. Someone was coming toward my hiding spot. I held my breath, barely daring to move. My mind raced, imagining what would happen if they discovered me. I could see Lauren approaching, her silhouette illuminated by the flickering candlelight, Mark just behind her, and Jenna carrying the lantern. They were talking in low tones. And then I heard it, Lauren's voice, my Lauren's voice, saying something about making sure he doesn't interfere and keeping him in the dark until it's done. My heart stopped. Those words weren't just about secrecy, they were about me, about what I had stumbled into. I realized in that instant that I wasn't just a witness to betrayal. I was now a target, someone they considered a threat to their plans. I ducked lower, barely breathing, praying they wouldn't notice the faint rustling of leaves beneath my feet. My phone buzzed again, and for a split second, I froze, fearing it would reveal my location. But it was just a message from an unknown number. "We see you. Don't come closer." I knew then that whoever was involved had eyes everywhere, that this was bigger than just Lauren, Mark, and Jenna. Someone else was watching, controlling, ensuring that no one got too close. Fear mingled with my anger. The woman I loved, the person I thought I knew, was capable of orchestrating something I couldn't understand. And the person I thought was an ex, harmless and distant, was now deeply involved in a scheme that included someone I trusted as a friend. I realized that if I wanted answers, I couldn't simply observe. I needed a plan, a way to uncover the truth without being caught. But the more I thought about it, the more dangerous it became. Every option carried risk, every choice could backfire. And then, just as I thought I had a grasp of the situation, the unexpected happened. A figure stepped out from behind the cabin, someone I didn't recognize at first, tall, imposing, moving with precision. I couldn't see their face clearly, but the energy they radiated was unmistakable: authority, power, control. They didn't speak, but their presence alone was a warning. The three of them, Lauren, Mark, and Jen, immediately straightened, glanced toward the figure, and the mood shifted. Laughter vanished, replaced by tension, respect, maybe even fear. I realized then that I had stumbled into something far beyond a personal betrayal. This wasn't just a love triangle or a friend's secret. This was an operation, a plan, something calculated, with layers I hadn't even begun to understand. And standing there in the shadows, hidden, heart racing, I knew that the next move I made would determine not just my understanding of the truth, but my safety, my future, and possibly the unraveling of a story that had only just begun to reveal its darkest secrets. The next morning felt unreal, like waking from a nightmare only to realize it was still happening. I barely slept, every sound outside the window making me jump, every vibration of my phone sending chills down my spine. The image of that tall, unknown figure haunted me. Who was he? Why were they meeting him in the middle of nowhere? And what had Lauren gotten herself into, or maybe orchestrated herself? I decided to dig deeper. If I couldn't get close physically, I could at least get close digitally. I had access to Lauren's shared cloud storage, something we had used for vacation photos and documents. She had forgotten to revoke my access after the trip began. My hands trembled as I logged in, not sure what I was expecting, but what I found was far from innocent. There were folders labeled with dates and names I didn't recognize, spreadsheets full of transactions, and images of properties, invoices, and cryptic notes. One document stood out, a list of coded initials and what looked like account transfers, large ones, spread across several weeks. I scrolled through in disbelief, realizing that Lauren and Mark had been working together for months, maybe longer, siphoning money from a joint business account I hadn't even known she was part of. Jenna's name appeared too, not directly, but hidden in the notes with initials I eventually connected to her. It wasn't just an affair, it was a setup, a scheme involving money laundering, maybe fraud. I didn't know the details, but the numbers were too high to be anything else. My first thought was to call the police, but something stopped me. What if I was wrong? What if I misunderstood? Then I remembered the threatening texts, the anonymous messages, the shadowy man at the cabin. No, this wasn't just a misunderstanding. This was something dark, something deliberate. I took screenshots, downloaded everything I could, and backed it up to my own drive. My pulse was racing, but for the first time in days, I felt like I had some power. I needed to see her again, not just for closure, but for answers. That evening, I returned to the lake. The area was quiet now, too quiet, like everyone had vanished overnight. No cars, no lights, no laughter. I felt a strange mixture of relief and dread. Maybe they'd left, maybe it was over, but as I turned to go, I noticed something: footprints, fresh ones, leading down toward the dock. I followed them slowly, heart pounding, until I reached the edge of the water. Something shimmered beneath the surface, catching the dying light of the setting sun. It looked metallic. I knelt down and froze. It was a phone. I fished it out with a stick, careful not to touch it directly, and when I wiped the water off the cracked screen, I saw the wallpaper. It was Lauren's. My stomach flipped. I pocketed it quickly, not wanting anyone to see me. I drove back to my hotel, locked the door, and tried turning it on. The screen flickered weakly before coming to life. Most of the files were corrupted from the water, but the gallery still opened, and what I saw made my blood run cold. Dozens of photos and videos: Lauren, Mark, Jenna, and the man from the night before. They were standing in front of a van filled with boxes, money, and documents. In one video, Lauren was speaking directly to the camera, saying something I could barely hear, but I caught fragments. No more running. This is the last deal. My mind was spinning. This wasn't just a secret getaway, it was a final job. And maybe something had gone wrong. Suddenly, a knock at my door made me jump. 3 sharp raps, deliberate. My entire body went rigid. I didn't answer. The knocks came again, harder this time. Then silence. I crept to the peephole, but no one was there. My phone buzzed again, unknown number. The message read, "You shouldn't have taken it." My breath caught. They knew. Somehow, someone had seen me. I packed my things in seconds, grabbed my keys, and left through the back exit. Every sound in the hallway echoed like a gunshot. I drove 4 miles without looking back, my hands shaking on the steering wheel, until I reached a small diner by the highway. I sat in my car thinking, trying to decide what to do next. I had evidence screenshots, the phone, videos, but I also had enemies who clearly didn't want me to expose them. I opened the phone again, scrolling through the remaining videos, and that's when I saw the last one. It had been recorded the night before I arrived in the city. Lauren was in it, sitting in a hotel room, looking directly at the camera, her eyes tired, almost defeated. "If anything happens," she said quietly, "it wasn't an accident. And if you're watching this, I'm sorry." I had no choice. The video ended abruptly, leaving me staring at my reflection on the dark screen. My heart sank. What did she mean by no choice? Was she being forced into this? Was she a victim, or was she manipulating me even now? I realized I didn't know her at all anymore. I had to make a decision. Go to the police and risk exposing myself, or go back to the cabin and find out what had really happened to her. The rational part of me screamed to run, to forget her, to let it all go. But I couldn't. Not after everything. Not after that message. I needed to know if she was still alive. As I drove back toward the forest, the sky darkened, and a storm began to roll in. Lightning flashed across the horizon, thunder rumbling in the distance. The cabin appeared like a ghost through the trees, its silhouette looming, windows dark. My headlights caught something by the entrance, a car door, open, the same one Mark had been driving. My pulse quickened. I killed the engine and stepped out, the rain starting to fall in sheets. The air smelled of pine and fear. I approached slowly, every sense alert. The door creaked as I pushed it open, and the darkness inside felt suffocating. I called out her name once, softly. No answer. Then lightning illuminated the interior for a split second, and I saw something on the floor. My chest tightened as I stepped closer, every nerve screaming that I was about to find something I didn't want to see. The next flash confirmed it, a phone, another one, shattered, lying beside a torn photograph of me and Lauren. And beside it, something that made my blood run cold, a small piece of paper, soaked but still legible, with 4 words scrawled in her handwriting: "They know about you." Rain poured down, soaking me to the bone as I stared at the note, my mind racing with every possible scenario. "They know about you." The words burned into my brain, each one a threat, a warning, a puzzle I had to solve. I knew I was dangerously close, but I couldn't turn back now. I had to understand what Lauren had gotten herself into, what Mark and Jenna had been planning, and whether she was a victim or a mastermind in this twisted game. I took a deep breath, pushing through the storm, moving toward the main cabin door. My heart pounded in my chest, each step a countdown to confrontation or disaster. I crept inside, the floor slick with rainwater tracked in from outside, and scanned the room, empty. Everything was quiet except for the faint hum of a generator and the sound of rain hitting the roof. For a moment, relief washed over me, and I wondered if I had arrived too late. Then I saw movement in the shadows, Lauren stepping out from behind a support beam. She looked nothing like the woman I thought I knew. Her hair was damp, clothes disheveled, but her eyes, they were sharp, calculating, almost unrecognizable. She froze when she saw me, and in that instant, all the anger, heartbreak, and fear collided. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered, her voice a mix of regret and steel. "I told you not to get involved." I stepped closer, rain dripping off my clothes, and demanded answers. Why the lies? Why the trip? Why the videos, the phone, everything? She hesitated, and then slowly, she explained. The trip wasn't about rekindling anything with Mark. It was about extracting herself from a dangerous situation that had started years ago. Mark had been involved in illegal operations, laundering money through businesses she thought were legitimate. Jenna had been coerced to help, a pawn in a game that had spiraled out of control. The man at the cabin, the imposing figure I had seen, was part of a federal task force, undercover, working to bring Mark and his associates to justice. The videos, the ledgers, the transfers, they weren't evidence of her betrayal, they were evidence she had been gathering to protect herself and expose the operation. My mind reeled. Everything I had assumed, every suspicion, every gut-wrenching feeling, had been wrong. She had been in danger, hiding in plain sight, playing a role I hadn't understood, all while I had been consumed by jealousy and fear. And then the storm outside intensified, thunder shaking the cabin, and a new realization hit me: I wasn't safe either. By following her, by uncovering the phone and the evidence, I had entered their world. "You need to leave," she said firmly. "If they know you're here, you're in danger too." I hesitated, torn between anger at the deception and relief at the truth. Before I could respond, the door burst open. Mark and Jenna were there, caught off guard, disarmed by the sudden appearance of law enforcement, the figure from the night before, and several others. Lauren moved quickly, taking my hand and pulling me behind her as officers moved in to secure the room. Chaos erupted: shouts, movement, a blur of faces and voices, but I stayed focused on her. She looked at me, eyes filled with an intensity I hadn't seen before, and said quietly, "I had to protect you too. I couldn't let anyone know you were involved until it was safe." In that moment, the betrayal, the fear, the pain, all of it melted into a complex mix of awe and relief. The woman I thought I had lost had been fighting a battle I couldn't have imagined, and now it was over. Mark and Jenna were taken into custody, and the task force began sorting through the evidence Lauren had meticulously gathered. We sat in the back of a patrol vehicle, dripping wet, exhausted, the storm finally easing. For the first time in days, we were silent together, absorbing the enormity of everything. The night had been terrifying, but it had also revealed the truth: the lies I had believed, the secrets I had feared, the dangers I hadn't known existed. Lauren squeezed my hand. "I'm sorry for everything you saw," she said softly. "But it's over. It's finally over." I looked at her, seeing the woman I had loved and lost and now found again in a way I couldn't have anticipated. The relief, the grief, the adrenaline, it all washed over me at once. I realized that sometimes the truth isn't what it seems, and betrayal isn't always betrayal. Lauren had been fighting for her life, for ours, in ways I couldn't have imagined. And in that moment, I understood something deeper. Trust isn't just about what we see or think we know, it's about believing in someone even when the world around us is chaos. As the storm cleared and the first light of dawn broke across the forest, I knew that nothing would ever be the same, but maybe, just maybe, we had survived it together, and that was all that mattered.